take it. Got it! Boston wins! Two legends in basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast. NBA, some college.
All right, welcome in another episode of the Ryan and Goodman and Tangway not along for the ride podcast today. Gary is he has other important matters to tend to, so it's just Bob and I like the old days, and we are CLNS Media Network. Show is brought to you by Prize Picks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Make sure to download today and use that code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Bob, let's get to it. Oklahoma City, 3 years removed from, I believe, a 24-win season in which Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was a third-year player. 3 years later, they are now going to the NBA Finals. Does this show you that tanking, again, Philly didn't tank the right way. It backfired with the Sixers, but man, Sam Presti has figured out the art of tanking and doing it quickly and accumulating draft picks, drafting well, getting fortunate as well, and made a great trade with Shea and got Chet through the draft and picked up Jalen Williams. I mean, he's done an unbelievable job of evaluating. And how about Mark Dagnall?
Right.
I thought he was brought in as a figurehead, honestly, when they got rid of Billy Donovan, because Mark was Billy's guy at Florida, then was an assistant at Holy Cross, then was a G League head coach for Sam Presti in Oklahoma City. And I just felt like, all right, this is the guy that Sam Presti's going to elevate. And you know what? He's going to be fired in 3 years. He was hired to tank, and he'll be gone in a couple of years. And they've stuck with him. And now they are the favorites to win the NBA title. How crazy is this?
He's on his way to being the next Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah.
You look back at what his background was and I don't know what the actual expectations were at the time, but they couldn't have been grandiose, at all. And then look, he's going to the Hall of Fame. We all know that. Okay, Mark, we love the story with Mark. We love the fact that he's one of ours, extended Central Mass, Leominster, Mass. We know that his background he was the student manager for Calhoun, that he was recommended by George Blaney, all this stuff that, the background story for us and our locale is wonderful. And so it makes him very rootable. I'll have a problem, not a big one, a little bit of a problem if assuming that Indiana gets by the Knicks, because I have to root for Carlisle personally, and I don't want to root against Mark Daigneault. But
you're torn.
I'll have to deal. That'll be my personal psychological issue. Okay.
You don't have to root, Bob. You don't have to root. You can just enjoy.
I know, and I can't. I know, and that's it. I want, but I would love to see Carlisle get it done. I would, and Mark will have more time.
Why is Carlisle? Wait, to get off topic a little bit here.
Yeah.
Was Rick Carlisle ever considered to be a candidate for the Boston Celtics coaching job at any point throughout the season? Why not?
Never heard his name came up at all. I don't remember it. I'd have to ask our beat people if they ever heard about it. But I personally never got a whiff that they had thought about him. So, all right. There you go. OKC, Sam Presti. The answer to your original question about the efficacy of tanking, hey, it can work. It worked for the Astros in baseball. Yeah. It's worked. And then the flip side is the 76ers, who are now a dumpster fire at the moment, and other teams that have not, and other sports. So, but it kind of worked. But along the way, then you got to have the combination of judgment and luck. But you always need that.
Yeah.
Of course, guys being available to you at the right time. There have been times when the #1 pick in the draft, people were going, "Oh my God, do I want to pay him?" Paris Ellison, Exhibit A. Go back to his being #1 in the draft, and then people turned out, about what his work habits were or weren't. Anyway, Michael Olowokandi was the number one, right? Am I right?
Oh
He
yeah,
was the number one pick.
Candyman.
Okay,
Yep.
so you got to be lucky the right year, like uh, as they are now in Charlotte. I mean, in Dallas, because of
Totally.
Cooper. I mean, okay, now, I was the roster construction is very interesting and very very a little bit like I did everybody. I mean, I know you were big on Jalen Williams, right?
Well, big, but you didn't know coming out of Santa Clara. Even I didn't see him a
Huh.
ton. Like I thought he'd be a nice piece,
Okay,
but I didn't think he'd be what he is.
all
No,
right, all
no.
right, fine. That's so there's an overachiever, if you will,
Yep.
there. I
Chet,
tell
you
you,
knew. You knew Chet if he was going to be healthy, Bob. Like everybody, again, I saw Chet a bunch back in you know, our biggest thing, if you remember, my biggest thing about Chet was health, but not if
was
he's on the court, he's not Victor, but he's not
he's
Wemby.
an asset. I want to talk about him.
Right.
I'm watching him now closely. We're watching every game, and of course during the season, that's not the case. And we wondered what effect he would have after sitting out all of the previous season. And the effect is 68-14. I think he's got something to do with it. And we're seeing every night why he has something to do with it at both ends of the floor. He's an intriguing guy, because of that. That we wonder, will that body hold up? And maybe we don't know if it's going to hold up.
Right.
And the history of big men, whether it's big men, whether it's Yao Ming, for example, where wound up his career had to end because of his feet couldn't hold up.
Right.
And there've been some of the other big guys who didn't last as long as they should. We have no idea. He's 23 years old. They better enjoy it while they got it because you don't know. And somebody could take him out, some night they could undercut him. He could have a horrendous fall. And boy, that'd be a fall. I'm serious. You don't know. So enjoy it while you got it, folks. I always preach that. But you see what they saw in him. He is a defensive. You talk about rim protector because he can protect the rim from 10 feet away. I mean, seriously. And his instinct. You got to have an instinct too. It's not just talent, right? A lot of guys have had talent historically. They didn't have the work drive or the instinct or the basketball IQ. He appears to have the whole package in that regard. He's got it all. And then the other end of the floor, he has a beautiful stroke on his three, and he's a vacuum cleaner on cleaning up your miss. He's very good at that. He's excellent. He's a Hoover. So he's a force at both ends of the floor. Oh boy, they really have something there. And but you keep looking at him and saying, what body like that has ever held up in the history of this league? And I can't think of any. And that so good luck. I'm knocking on the old wood here. I want him to have a great career. I just hope he can have it.
You know what changed the franchise though is the trade with Shea, right? I mean, they traded away Paul George. I believe the trade was Paul George. Remember, like he went to the Clippers because I think Kawhi wanted him there.
Yeah.
And I think it was like Shea plus Gallinari plus like 4 or 5 first-round picks, one of which ended up so far being Jalen Williams. They still have, I think, a few of those at this point. I mean, talk about a steal of all steals.
Yep.
I mean, you got the MVP. You got a young dude you can build around. Paul George's a nice player, but never really lived up to the hype.
No, there's something missing. There's a yeah, but there, and that's right. There is. It's a talent, no question, but there's a yeah, but. The discontent thing, the fact that he keeps talking himself out of places, and all that nonsense, and you get tired of that. And but is he talented? Yeah, he's talented. Is he going to go retire rich? Yeah, he's going to retire rich. Okay, fine. It's going to be a career. He's not going to the Hall of Fame. It ain't like that. We'll see how I'm afraid for his sake. I hate to tell you, Paul. You're going to be as much or more remembered for your perambulations, your attitude, your persona than you are for your actual playing. And you were a good player, but you're not a player that moves the needle. I'm sorry for you. No.
So can Shea be? I know there's been this discussion lately, Bob, of like the face of the NBA.
Oh,
I don't think they have one. I don't think there is one right now.
I resist that.
Well, Magic and Bird. Wait, hold on.
Yep.
I mean, again, I'm going to go back to when I was young, not even go back to early days. But Magic and Bird were the face.
But the
Michael was
phrase,
the face. LeBron has been the face. I don't think there is a face right now, no matter what happens with Shea. I don't think it's Joker. I don't think it's Tatum. Certainly not Anthony Edwards yet. I don't think there is one right now.
all the way going back 70 plus years to a man who was the unquestioned face of the league. Bob Cousy was the unquestioned face of basketball. He was, in fact, Mr. Basketball. It was an official nickname that America knew him by. And if you stopped someone on the street in 1953, 4, 5, 6, 7, and said, simply name me a basketball player.
Really?
The overwhelming answer would have been Bob Cousy. Okay. But the phrase didn't exist. The phrase didn't exist in the 60s. The phrase didn't exist for Bird and Magic. The phrase didn't exist for Michael. The phrase didn't exist at the beginning of the LeBron James era.
Right. I never heard the face of
because it's a talking heads ESPN/talk show contrivance, as are so many other things, such as ESPN's obsession with the youngest guy to fart 15 times in a playoff game before the age of 23. I'm waiting for that one, and I mean, this is it's a contrivance, face of the NBA. I mean, no, it's nonsense. And particularly if you're not going to acknowledge that the face of the NBA doesn't deserve to be an American, which right now, given our run of MVPs and the fact that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander himself happens to be a Canadian, well, I'm going to say it for the millionth time. I love the idea that the Thunder's backcourt is all Canadian.
Lou Dort, baby.
Most people don't know about Lou Dort. No. They don't know he's Lou Dort, born and raised in Montreal, Canada, Il Parle Français. People don't know that. It's just I have to tell them, that we have an all-Canadian backcourt ready to go to the NBA finals. So there you go. Anyway, no, it face of the NBA. It's so stupid. I hate to get involved in it. It's nonsense. Okay, no, not that, but anyway, there's a
lot of really good. Like, I'm not even sure. Again, Joker, certainly, I think if anybody would say Shea and Joker were, I mean, that's why they were the two top guys for the MVP right now. But, there's a lot of guys that are really good that are in the discussion of the top 10, 15 players in the NBA right now. That's what makes it special. There's a lot of really good young players coming up. I can't wait to see what Cooper Flag does as a rookie this year. But, I mean, again, there's always been that. Even when Magic and Bird were running the league, there are always really good young players coming up behind them. The difference is now we're seeing LeBron at the end of it. So he's been passed. So everybody's looking forward to who's that new guy.
If there was ever anybody that in his time was the undoubted, unquestioned, it was Michael. Yeah. Michael's era. Michael Jordan ruled that era. Michael Jordan was an international celebrity. Now in the 60s it would have been Bill Russell, and with some arguments from Wilt. But I'm telling you, it's Michael Jordan. And the table was set by Bird and Magic, and David Stern wanting to globalize the NBA. Getting us involved and stuff, including starting with the McDonald's Open. People forget about that, but that's how it all got started for us in international competition in 1987 in Milwaukee. So anyway, and that was, but Michael was now, and since then, of course, in our time now, LeBron has been the guy. Oh my God, his span is 20 years. It's a remarkable career. I'm, the LeBron haters just leave me so cold in terms of trying to diminish his accomplishments.
It's so frustrating. Your guy, and I'm using that term loosely, Skip Bayless leads the charge, and it's like, dude, enough. He's not Michael Jordan. He's never going to be Michael Jordan. He is an incredible basketball player who has won multiple championships, and yes, the way he does it is different than Michael.
Of course it is, and he's his own self, and it's all. But anyway, so
all right, so let's move to the other series a little bit. Yep. And the Pacers, as we record here, on the verge of knocking out the Knicks. They're up 3-1. And in game 4, the guy who was voted the most overrated player about a month ago in the NBA, one Tyrese Haliburton, just had one of the most unbelievable, flawless performances that I've seen in the playoffs in a long time. I mean, you're talking about a triple
Well,
double.
I've got some
Yeah,
personal
go ahead.
standard games. Bird Game 6 in '86. I was privileged to be present, sitting right under the basket for in Philadelphia in 1980 when Magic played the game he played, the 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists game in the absence of Kareem. Okay, that's still as good a game as you can imagine. And Michael had several, of course.
Yeah.
This game, think about this game, I think, and the fact that the great kicker that makes you opens your eyes is the no turnover thing.
Right. Yes.
Well, okay, because that's so totally rare when you're putting up those other kind of numbers. That means you're not just, you're doing stuff with the ball when you get 12 assists and you never threw it away, you never had it stolen. Okay. But the thing is, you don't notice that till the game's over. You know what I mean? You're not aware of that. I mean, I wasn't. I don't know if you were. I doubt if most people, even basketball experts, are looking at a game paying total vigilance to whether a guy is turning the ball over, never doing it to have
at the very end, end, you look up and you're like,
okay, yeah. I mean, the converse is definitely true. How many times have we spent talking about Jaylen Brown here, but for example, so, okay, it's extraordinary game. I got to tell you something. And I told Gary the other day, I reached out to Doc Rivers and I asked him, and I texted Doc and I said, what about the Pacers? I said, do you respect slash respect slash admire about what they do? And so I can talk intelligently about them. I said, okay. So he got back to me. And here's what he said. And think about this in context of what we were just talking about. Tyrese Haliburton's judgment. Tyrese Haliburton knows when to shoot and when to pass. Tyrese Haliburton does not, and this is really very, very inside baseball, basketball, important stuff that the average person doesn't think about as much. He doesn't search out points for himself at any time. He always makes the right decision. Well, or generally, makes the right decision. And he's in it and then we walked, and the next game we see him play after I get this assessment is this game that we're just talking about. The complete personification of everything that Doc was talking about with this guy. So we give Doc's talent judgment and assessment 4 stars here, and for tipping me off the Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Sam Presti and the job he's done. You look at Kevin Pritchard and what he did, again, trading for Haliburton.
Trading one of my favorite players, by the way,
Sabonis, right?
That was
both were like,
pretty even up, wasn't it?
Like you're going to trade Sabonis, but again, they needed a guy like Haliburton. They've got other really good players around Tyrese, and what Doc said is true. And sometimes it almost hurts Tyrese that he's too unselfish, especially early.
That can happen. Listen, that's what held, in my opinion, and that's not gospel. In my opinion, that's what held LeBron back from winning championships until he realized I'm the best player on the floor and I got to act accordingly. And he didn't have that. Michael never had that problem. Michael was the flip side. Michael didn't win.
He didn't give a shit. He just didn't give a shit about what anybody thought of him, said about him. Now, again, he wasn't in the world of social media either, no. But LeBron cares. LeBron cares of what people think, and he certainly did when he was younger.
Yeah, well, I think I keep coming back to him in the movie that they did when he was at the documentary at St. Vincent St. Mary, When We Were Kings. And you watch the trace those kids from their sophomore year, and they won it, and they didn't win it their junior year, and then they did win it their senior year. And LeBron, then the point that the other guys make, LeBron, we all know who the star is, but LeBron is one of us. LeBron wants to be one of us. Yeah. He's always been that.
And his best skill was what? His ability to make people better.
Yes.
That's always been his best skill since the first time I saw him when he was probably 14 or 15 years old.
But back to Haliburton, and the idea of I don't know enough about him. He seems like a very, thoughtful guy.
Yeah.
And of course, then he went through the thing with his father. He had to apologize, and the idea that his father made a reappearance and he put on that show for Dad, that's another little aspect, right? But do we think that he was motivated by that overrated thing?
Oh, I'm sure. How can you not?
I'm throwing it out there. It's a pretty
Yeah.
rhetorical question.
I think so, but he didn't play like he was. Again,
No,
he didn't play selfish. He is not.
no,
He has not
no.
all of a sudden got out there and said, "I have to score
So
30."
you wonder how would it manifest itself? You wonder.
It's amazing.
I mean, we're seeing a manifestation, I guess, in a sense, although we don't know how he processed that.
Yeah.
How
I
that
don't know
factors in.
Tyrese. I never knew him that well at Iowa State, but have heard so many good things about him from, whether it's George Niang, also an Iowa State, some of the other guys, Steve
Yeah, yeah.
Prohm, who coached him at Iowa State. I was always worried just because his shot takes so long to get off and where he shoots it from. I did not know if that would translate into the NBA. I thought he would have trouble, to be honest, in that area. But again, he's not a selfish player. He doesn't force a whole lot. He finds a way to create separation, and he's got enough around him. That's the beauty of this Pacers team is they've got enough guys that, if Aaron Nesmith's on, Miles Turner could be on, Pascal Siakam.
Siakam had a 39-point game.
Right. They got a lot. They got a lot of guys that
And Turner,
that buy into their roles, and you wonder how much of that, Bob, is about, hey, our star is a guy who sets the tone that way.
yeah, I think it has to be that. I think. I mean, to me, it's gotta be that. And so,
okay, let's say, and we're recording this on the afternoon of Game 5 between the Knicks and the Pacers here. If the Pacers do advance in this series, everybody's going to say, what everybody's going to say.
Yeah, I know.
The lowest ratings ever, But now the diehard NBA fans shouldn't care. It doesn't matter.
But
Right.
This is an ongoing topic of discussion, and it frustrates me personally because I know it's true. And that people want to see New York's and Boston's and LA's and Chicago's. Yep. I don't understand that mentality. If you expanded the sport, you want the best team. Whoever gets there, if they're the best team, they're the best team. And football doesn't have this problem at all. I mean, look, Green Bay was once the toast of the world. Oakland's been the toast of the world. The right now, Kansas City's the toast of the world. Buffalo is on the verge. Nobody cares about it, but the other sports have to worry. Baseball has to worry too. Although it's funny in baseball, the one thing, the Mets and Yankees World Series bombed at the box office. America just didn't care
because nobody else cared.
Yeah, I mean nobody else bombed at the box office.
You almost need a David and Goliath, right? You want New York with Oklahoma City.
You want new? Oh yeah, you know that the people in the league office and the TV execs want the Knicks desperately, and I predicted it won't be. It'll be a disappointing. Even if it's transcendent, I just don't relate to this. I don't understand how people can profess to be fans and care what's on on the front of the jersey. As opposed if they're good and they're entertaining and they know how to play and can play. And by the way, you can still bet on them, so, no problem. But yeah, that's going to be an issue. And I think if the Knicks, do not make this big comeback and we'll see. But I'm going to welcome it. I think it's going to be a nice matchup for sure.
Right, before we get into the Knicks and then a little bit on the Celtics, and I'm going to put you on the spot here as Brad Stevens of what you would do. Everybody listening to the show, we ask that again, you subscribe to the pod, like, and leave a review. For those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to the Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Celtics content. Also, make sure you turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. And again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. So Download that today and use the code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. All right, Bob. The Knicks. What do they have to do to get to the next level if they do get knocked out here, which it looks like it's going to be hard for them to reel off 3 straight? What is the biggest issue? Is it the Jalen Brunson domination of the basketball? That's what a lot of people are saying. You and I love Jalen Brunson, but I do see it a little bit that it's kind of too much on Jalen Brunson. The ball doesn't move, doesn't zip around like it does with Indiana. Is that a big concern for you, or do they just need another dude? And defensively, that's another issue for me because Cat gets exposed here defensively a little bit. What's your biggest issue with the Knicks watching?
Right. He's not going to change at 31. He's not going to get better at that. Okay. You're getting we've seen his offensive skills, to manage to best themselves. All right. Yeah, it's interesting. For all the praise, and we heap it, and we all love Brunson, there is a defensive potential to get a liability there at times. The ball handling thing, I think he may figure it out himself. I don't know. But I think they need another player of consequence coming off the bench at least. They've now adjusted the starting 5, to take Hart off the bench for 2 reasons. One, because of what Robinson does bring to the table, and 2, because they know Hart will take it. I've been reading all about that. They're not worried that he's such a team guy, and he'll at least he's saying the right things, and they believe that he means the right things, so they can do it. That's what they've been doing. Yeah, they're good. They're close.
But we never thought even they get this far. Is it a success? Anyway, Bob, because they now got the city going crazy. They beat the Celtics. Even if they lose, where a lot of people are like, well, you got a great opportunity in front of you here. You got the Pacers. You should beat them. Is it still one of those where you look back, if you're Brunson, if you're Cat, and you're saying like, okay, we just got to build on this?
Yeah, because I think they may reach their limit. There's a team I hold up as an example of doing everything right, to be a B student, to be a B minus, A minus student. And that team was the Milwaukee Bucks of the 80s.
Yeah.
That team up against, they looked both ways before crossing. They drank their milk to the bottom of the glass. They studied hard for long before the exam, and they got a B, because they weren't the Celtics, they weren't the Lakers, they weren't the 76ers, and they maxed out with at a nice level.
Really good players, just not like a
Johnson,
transcending
Jackson,
guy.
Sidney Moncrief, Paul Pressey, good players,
Yep.
and in a mix, and they had their moments, but they weren't the Celtics, and they weren't the Sixers, and they weren't they weren't the Pistons either. The 4 teams won championships in the 80s. Okay, 4 teams, and they weren't one, and they were the best. Yeah, but they were the best also ran they won the also ran prize of the mid to late 80s. So anyway, the Knicks, are they at that level?
What about Tibbs? Wait, I got one for you because a lot of people have hit me with this, Bob.
Okay,
I want to know what you think of this. Tom Thibodeau, if they do lose the series again, some people are saying like Tibbs should be out of
I know I don't buy it, but I know it's out there.
Yeah.
And yet he has made some he has gone to the bench, which they wanted him to do. He's made a lineup adjustment, even a starting lineup adjustment. It could be time for the new voice thing, though. But you don't hear complaints from the Knicks about him, as far as I know, right?
Nope. No, because those guys are used to. I'll say this: if Tibbs is the right coach for a group, it's a group that was at Villanova that did things precise. Jay Wright wasn't Tibbs. He's totally different personality, but it was culture. This is the way we're going to do things. You never talk back. You just do them. You play hard. You play the right way. And Tibbs is similar in some of those things, right? He's similar at that level. So these kids, guys, whether it's Brunson, Hart, Bridges, they're used to it. And now Towns comes into the mix, and, it's hard to fight any of this because ultimately this is the way it's done.
Refresh my memory. Was there an issue with he and Tibbs earlier on in Minnesota?
I don't know. I don't remember the issue. I think was right, Jimmy Butler, who
Okay.
loved Tibbs, right? Loved Tibbs in Chicago, and I think there was more of an issue with Butler and Towns and Wiggins.
Okay, yeah, I knew there was some issue there. Okay, it was Towns and Butler. That makes more sense to me. Not Tibbs himself. Yeah, because I know he sings Tibbs praises now, and I just didn't know if that was a new process, a new thing, or whether that's the way it always was. Okay. Yeah, I think another player, would be nice, an instant offense off the bench or something like that. But otherwise, it may very well be, and our fans might well. We're very close to having to tell the fans, except you maxed out. This is who your team was. This is who your team was this year. They gave you a nice year, had a nice funding. You had the great exhilaration of kicking the Celtics' butt to win it, to clinch it. You gotta just go back to that one. Hope you taped it, and have a party on July 18th with your friends to watch that tape of you kicking the ass of the Celtics, kind of thing. I think it's more likely that's the case.
And you got everybody back next year for this
Yeah,
thing. Everybody.
Yeah. And so now, meanwhile, as we speak, we don't know the actual physical status of Towns, and
he's always out there like he's hurt. Always. The way he moves, I just feel like he always looks like he looks like a player that would be down at the YMCA. The way he moves, right?
Yeah. All I can think of is George Harrison, something that in the way you move. But anyway, we won't go there. I heard the song this morning. It's
I'm with you with the Knicks, though. I think certainly, if you're a Knicks fan, yeah, you're disappointed if you don't move forward because it was Indiana. But you're going to look back and say, okay, you know what? We're finally relevant again. We beat the Celtics, and can we build on this? How do we build on this?
Yeah, right. So, and I've said this before, but while we're here talking, Leon Rose is the team he put together, the way the decisions he made. All these guys, as I keep saying, my mother would say, store bought, with the exception of somebody off the bench. But he did a nice job of assembling this group to get them together, and with a little more luck. But anyway, it's not a fait accompli, and I wouldn't be remotely surprised if we're back in Indianapolis for a 6, at all. But we've both seen enough to know that you can't. This is why we love sports. You don't know. I keep preaching them everywhere I go. And people talk about sports as entertainment. No, entertainment, capital E, is something else. And generally speaking, it's scripted, and not in sports. The most certain thing it isn't is scripted. And that's one reason why we love it, because we don't know.
All right, let's finish with me putting you on the spot here. And I'm going to make you the good-looking, younger general manager of the Boston Celtics right now. I'm going to take years off your life right now. I'm going to make you Brad Stevens.
The problem with me assuming the role of Brad Stevens, there are many, but one of them is, he is an extraordinary judge of talent, I think. And
so are you. Wait. You're selling yourself short here. So are you.
No, I started off my rookie year on the beat in 1960, second year, that with a judgment that Garfield Smith was going to be a really good player. All right, so I started off with that one. I got that one.
You got better. You got better.
I got better. Yeah, I did get better. I wasn't wrong on Bird or McHale. I happened to see in the college All-Star game in Indianapolis in 1980, and during the Final Four, they used to have the All-Star game, and they still do sometimes have. They do. And McHale dominated that game, and I had only known him vaguely, and I said, "Oh boy!" And then I was so excited when they drafted him. I mean, because first of all, I was totally petrified that they were going to take Joe Barry Carroll, who I hated, not as a person, but as a player. Okay, now I don't know who would be the apple of Stevens' eye right now. I don't know who is the Derek White of 2025. I don't know. I would bet there's somebody that when he's ready to. All right, we all know the two most vulnerable people. How can I dispute this? Are Porzingis and Jrue.
Yeah.
And you certainly know there's got to be a market for Jrue with a team that thinks they're almost there, or want to add a stabilizing veteran presence to the whole mix. Well, there he is. He's the guy. Okay. I don't know who we'd like in return, or how many draft picks would satisfy him. And as far as Porzingis is concerned, you don't know what the market is for Porzingis, because everybody knows what we know, is that you love him some night when he's there and he's available and he's healthy, but how long, it doesn't seem to last too long.
Beyond that, Bob, even if you trade for him,
30 million.
you could do all these tests, right? You could do all these tests. Well, what was wrong with him here in the playoffs? Could that come back next playoffs out of nowhere? The market will be tough. I think they're going to have to maybe eat Porzingis's deal and have to trade Jrue, who again, he's older, but you put him with the right group on a young team.
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
And one other complicating thing in terms of, taking apart their roster, Al, one way or the other, you're not going to have him, or you're going to have a 39-year-old Al. Right. And if he could promise us he could be as good as he was this year, then you'd like to have Al back. But boy, that's a risk too. So are you going
to see more Luke Kornet next year? Probably.
I'm a paid-up member of that fan club. I joined it this year. I never cared. I know who he was. I went back at Vanderbilt, but I hadn't paid any attention to him. I thought I'll give you an example, and people, youngins, cover your ears. You don't hear people talk like this all the time anymore. But back in the day when I was in my prime covering the NBA, in the 80s and 90s, I had a category of player. I called them the BWS, and they sat on every bench. Big white stiff. And every team seemed to have a big white stiff.
Was Greg Kite a charter member?
Yeah. He was president of the fan club, the club there. Although he had his assets, but still, you know what I mean. There were, and later on they were all called Plumlee, But anyway,
the Celtics had a lot of them, Bob.
I know. We had Brad Lowhouse, and we had
Rick Roby.
We had one more I'm forgetting about. I kind of thought he was the modern version of the BWS. Yeah. He's not. He's better. He's an asset. And I X'd out this year one night back in January or February, and I got hooted down, by people, that how invaluable he was to this team, and how he's a old-fashioned big man who knows how to be a big man, and act as a, and he is, and he gives you something at both ends, and I like him. But now we like him in 12 and 15-minute bursts. Do we like him in 28? Correct. That's different.
But can can Porzingis play enough? Can he play 60 games and give you 30 minutes? And then, you give Tillman some minutes, you give Kornet some. They're not going to be great next year. Again, no. I think you have to have modest expectations if you're a Celtics fan, which is best case scenario to me is you win a series, depending on what Brad does. But unless he pulls a rabbit out of his hat here, you're going to be a team that's somewhere in the, to me, 4 to 8 range in the Eastern Conference. You hope to win a series, and you hope, I just don't know what you're doing. You hope Tatum comes back in 2 years healthy.
Of course, this is next year's a not throwaway year, but next year's a skipping year because of the Tatum thing. It changes everything, and it's no question. I just hope people appreciate the era that we've had. We've had contention. We've had many big games. We've had many exciting nights at the Garden and elsewhere, and we've had a championship. And which brings me one thing I wanted before we leave is that I meant to annotate next. It seems to me we've had an inordinate number out of clinching routes games this year. Yeah. That games where they're putting it away and they're giving their home. This is the key. They're giving home clinching routes that are just sending their fans home in utter orgasmic ecstasy. And we had one last night. How about if someone told you, I love to play, the old if someone told you. What if someone told you that in a clinching game in 2025, a first period score would be 23-9?
Halftime, what was it, 30, 25?
Yeah, 9 points in the first period.
Awful.
And I know they had 17 points in the first 18 minutes. Yeah. And I mean,
it was, yeah, the playoffs have been interesting, but there's been too many bad blowouts, like really bad.
Oh, yeah.
Turn off the TV. Last night I started watching, and we were at a restaurant, and I had the Canes hockey game on one TV, yep. And then I'm watching obviously OKC and Minnesota the other. And by halftime, I'm like, for what? Like, what am I even watching? The basketball game. It was so bad, and that's the part you want at this point. I always say this, like, you want competitiveness every single game if you can get it. You don't want rivalry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you could. You do it. But I'm just saying, for the sake of fans, there's having, we've been through them in Boston, going back. I can tell you back in the 60s, 1965, I remember listening to the game in my dorm room at BC. It was game 5. They're up 3-1 against the Lakers. And at the end of the third quarter, they're up by 16. And they open up the fourth quarter with a 20-0 run. Wow. And it was, and if anybody's pull out your Havlicek Stole the Ball album, because the highlights of that are on there. And I can still hear Johnny, what a display of basketball! What a magnificent display of basketball! He went up in the upper range, not the Johnny range. That dog whistle range he went up to. And you know who was on the floor for the Lakers, if not the whole time, most of the onslaught?
Who?
Don Nelson.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow.
So anyway, that was a day of excess of fan, delight. And then, of course, 86, that game that Bird played against Game 6 against, I think if you want to see, ladies and gentlemen, here's how to play basketball. Watch this number 33. He will show you how to play basketball at both ends of the floor. That was his greatest defensive effort individually that I ever saw. And it was acknowledged as such by the Rockets afterward, how great Larry was on defense as well as offense. Anyway, but this year there have been a number of them, at least 3 that I know of, and I'm sure there's been a couple more. And the Thunder have had 2 in a row. I go back to the first round, though. Game 4 of their sweep in the first round, final score was 117-115. Well, they had enough of that. Yeah. The last 2 scores have been 125-93 and 124-94, their last 2 clinching games.
Well, hopefully we will get some competitive games throughout the NBA Finals. Obviously, stick with us here. Gary will be back for the next episode of the Goodman, Tangway, and Ryan Goodman and Tangway Along for the Ride pod.
You got it.
Thanks for joining us. Make sure you again hit that subscribe button. We are sponsored by Prize Picks, and we'll see you next week.